At 92, Petula Clark drops devastating confession about the price of stardom. The downtown singer held secrets for decades. Powerful producers' harassment, death threats over a political message, and even about her marriage to Claude Wolfe. Now, she's telling all, even what really happened in that hotel room with Elvis Presley. The story of Petula Clark starts with a name that was not even hers to begin with. She was born Sally Olwen Clark on November 15, 1932, in Ewell, Surrey, but her father Leslie had other ideas. He took the names of two of his former girlfriends, Pet and Alla, and called her Petula. Her mother was not impressed, but it stuck. Her life had a twist before it had even started. She didn't have one of those childhoods where you stay in one place, grow up with the same friends, and so on. While her parents were busy working as nurses, she spent a lot of time in Wales with her grandparents in this tiny mining town, Abercynnau. Later, when the war started, the family kept relocating around, trying to stay safe from all the bombings. That change shaped her. She picked up accents, learned to adapt, and without noticing, was building skills that would make her a performer. Her first time singing in public was almost too good to be true. She was only 7 years old, standing in that noisy pub filled with Welsh miners. The air was thick with smoke, voices noisy, but the moment she opened her mouth to sing, everything fell silent. It was a glance at what was to come, but the real changing point came in 1942. There, at 9 years old, she and her father hit London's Underground Scene Theatre to record a greeting for her uncle, who was stationed in North Africa. It was to be a simple radio broadcast, part of a BBC show called It's All Yours. Then, in the middle of everything, the air raid sirens wailed, explosions rumbled above, as people in the shelter grew anxious. The show's producer needed a distraction. He asked if anyone wanted to perform. Petula raised her hand. At first, she wanted to do an impression of a famous comedian, but her father nudged her towards singing. She stepped onto a box to reach the microphone and began to sing Mighty Lure Rose. Her voice was clear and steady, cutting through the fear in the room. As she sang, the orchestra joined in, and for a few moments, the war outside didn't exist. That one performance changed everything. When the broadcast aired, the BBC was flooded with letters from listeners who wanted to hear more from this little girl with the angelic voice. Just like that, she became a regular on the radio. Over the next 3 years, she performed hundreds of times, her voice becoming a source of comfort for a nation at war. By 11, she was being called Britain's Shirley Temple. It wasn't just about her talent. It was the way she made people feel. She could mimic famous singers like Vera Lynn and Sophie Tucker, making audiences laugh one moment and bringing them to tears the next. Soldiers took her photo with them into battle. To them, she was more than a singer. She was a symbol of home, of everything they were fighting for. Her performances weren't just in grand theaters. She sang in bomb shelters, hospitals, and military camps. By 12, she had done over 500 shows for the troops. Then came the moment that sealed her place in history. In 1945, as the war in Europe ended, a massive celebration was held in Trafalgar Square. Thousands of people gathered, cheering, crying, and embracing, and right in the middle of it all, Petula Clark stood and sang. The girl who had spent the war lifting spirits was now part of the nation's victory. Success didn't deliberately find Petula Clark. Success merely stumbled upon her one day. At the age of 12, she was singing for British troops at the Royal Albert Hall when director Maurice Ellie happened to hear her perform. He was so blown away that he cast her in Medal for the General, even though she had never acted, in 1944. Just like that, she became Britain's Shirley Temple, a child star with a voice like thick, golden honey and a natural screen presence. In the next 5 years, she appeared in 17 films. One of the most important was I Know Where I'm Going, directed in 1945 by the legendary Michael Powell and Emma Pressburger. She was just 13, but she stood out even among other seasoned actors. She had sung for Winston Churchill, King George VI, and Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery by age 16. People started calling her the singing sweetheart, and that name captured perfectly the rise of her stardom. Her film career was thriving, but it was through music that Clark's career would be defined. In 1954, she recorded The Little Shoemaker. Actually, she did not even want to do the song. She felt the song was too childish for her developing career image. But her manager convinced her, and it would prove to be the right decision. The song hit number 7 on the UK charts, and then shocked all when it reached number 1 in Australia, making Clark the first British female artist ever to top the Australian charts, something unheard of in those days. What made the song even more pioneering was the breadth of its reach. She recorded it in English, French, German, and Italian, a bold move in an era where most artists stuck to one language. The results were immense. By the end of 1954, she had performed for a record 124,000-strong crowd at the Exhibition Ground in Newcastle, Australia, the biggest audience for any performer in the country at that time. Her multilingual career didn't stop there. Amazingly, she recorded her first French song, Pronomer, 1957, without speaking a word of the language. She learned it phonetically, memorizing how the sounds went without knowing what they meant. But so convincing was her performance that the song made the French top 10. By 1962, she had sufficient proficiency in the language to win the prestigious Grand Prix du Disque in France for Chariot. In the same year, she had simultaneous hit records in 3 languages: the French Chariot, the German Muir, and Romeo in English. No artist had done this before. Clark didn't just translate her songs. She recorded entirely different tracks for each market. She sang in Italian, Spanish, and even Japanese, taking up each language as a new artistic challenge. By the mid-1960s, her French hit Ya Ya Twist had sold over 1 million copies in France alone. In 1964, Tony Hatch came to Petula Clark with a song called Downtown. He believed that it could be a hit, but to Clark, it wasn't all that impressive. She thought that the words were just too simple and didn't suit her style. Hatch wouldn't give up. He knew the song had something special. Finally, Clark agreed to record it. On October 16, 1964, at Pi Studios in London, the session began and everything started going wrong. The electricity kept cutting out, forcing delays. In no time, frustrations were rising fast in the room. At one point, Clark was so fed up that she nearly walked out, convinced the song was cursed. But they pressed on, determined to get it over with. At last, just minutes before the studio closed, they got the final take. On November 16, 1964, Downtown was released in 4 countries simultaneously, something almost unheard of back then. In the U.S., it debuted on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 87. That was a promising start, but then came a shock. The song took off like wildfire. Within a month, it was already climbing to number 5. Then, on January 23, 1965, Downtown hit the top, making Clark the first British female artist ever to top the U.S. charts in the rock and roll era. But it wasn't just the U.S. that fell for the song. Downtown reached number 2 in the U.K., which was a big thing since only the Beatles' I Feel Fine was blocking it from the top spot. But that did not stop Downtown from being the sensation it would become. Downtown dominated the charts in places like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and West Germany. It wasn't just a hit, the song was a game changer. In 1965, Downtown won a Grammy for Best Rock and Roll Recording. Competition was strong. Clark was up against the Beatles and the Beach Boys, but she walked away with the award. That was just about unheard of for a 32-year-old pop star in the youth-dominated music world of the 1960s. If Downtown did unexpectedly well, it's as though nothing could stop Clark afterwards. Between 1964 and 1968, Clark rattled off 15 consecutive top 40 U.S. hits, with songs such as I Know a Place, number 3, My Love, number 1, and Don't Sleep in the Subway, number 5, keeping her the top. Bizarrely, while America embraced her as a superstar, her chart success in the UK wasn't comparable in that same period. But nor was Clark's success contained to English-speaking countries. Since 1962, 2 years before Downtown would make her name internationally, she had been recording sessions in French, German, and Italian. In France, she was so huge that she once thought of giving up her English-language career altogether. Her song Muir was the best-selling single by a foreign artist in Germany at the time, shifting enough to earn a gold record for 1 million copies sold. By the end of the 1960s, Clark had reportedly sold over 70 records worldwide. In an era before streaming, before music could spread with the click of a mouse, she became